top 4 draft pick or trash. Those are the options for the Chicago Bulls when it comes to this year's draft. After trading away their pick to get Nikola Vucevic, odds of them maintaining their pick aren't high, but they did place a top 4 protection on it, and at the 7th worst record in the league, they do have an opportunity to potentially keep their pick. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down exactly how the Chicago Bulls can guarantee a top 4 pick in this year's draft. But before we get into that, I do have one question for you guys, and I'd love for you to answer it down in the comments below. Would you rather the Bulls fight for that playoff spot and make it into the playoffs, or just go for the lottery pick? Those are the two options the Bulls really have right now, and they're on opposite side of the fences. They could really go either way, and I'm not so sure what I would rather have. But what do you guys think? What would you prefer? But let's not waste any more time. Let's go and get right into things. And first, we're going to start with the current odds for the Chicago Bulls and getting that top 4 pick. Now, in this instance, we are going to be talking about the Bulls going after the lottery pick instead of the playoffs. So we got to take this all with a grain of salt. Now, hopefully you guys can see this. This is very, very blurry because it's all white, but I'm going to explain it to you nonetheless if you guys cannot see it anyways. As mentioned, the Bulls have the 7th worst record in the league as it currently stands. At the 7th spot, the Bulls have a 20% chance to land the number 7 pick and a 34% chance to land the 8 pick. Of course, in both those instances, the Bulls would not have their pick. You need top 4. But as we all know and all we care about is those top 4. So let's look at the percentages for the Bulls. As you can see on this line right here, if you guys can see, we had an 8.5% chance to land at 4. You have an 8.1% chance to land at 3, a 7.8% chance to land at 2, and a 7.5% chance to land at number 1, which would be absolutely insane if the Bulls were able to get that number 1 spot in the lottery. It will completely change what this team looks like short-term and long-term, and could really, really make a dramatic impact. But we're only focused on trying to get top 4. We're not only focused on number 1. Even though all of these percentages are below 10% and don't seem super high, they're not that bad. With how the Bulls are currently sitting, and it only takes a little bit for the Bulls to get themselves in a better position, at least percentage-wise. Now, I will say, if the Bulls will remain at number 7, there's only been one time in history that the 7th seed has got the 1 pick, but, one time in history to get the 1 pick, still a decent shot to get those top 4. So, how can the Bulls guarantee a top 4 pick? Now, I will say, there is no guarantee. It's a lottery. And although maybe this is technically clickbait, there's definitely ways to raise their chances. But you could be the worst team in the league and still not land top 4. So there's no 100% shot to do it. There are definitely some ways to help you, though. And let's talk about how you can help yourself for the Chicago Bulls. First, let's look at the remaining games of the year. I got the schedule right here behind me, March and April. How are they going to be playing out for the Chicago Bulls? The Bulls are going to be playing 8 playoff teams in the remaining 20 games, 5 play-in teams, and 7 lottery teams. Pretty even split there. You got some tough competition and some lighter competition. Of course, most of these teams are standing-wise better than the Bulls because they are the 7th worst team. But this may make you think that it's, unlikely for the Bulls to, get so much worse because you are facing 7 people around their range, and the Bulls are just barely outside the play-in, so 5 more right around their range. A lot of teams that the Bulls could beat, and the Bulls have already shown a great ability to beat better teams. So chances, at least mentally speaking, may not seem high. But if the Bulls lose a few games that they're maybe expected to win early on in these 20 games, it could put the Bulls in a really, really, tough to solid spot where they might get knocked out of the playoff race very, very quickly. And especially with how their final 5 games are looking here. As we look, final 5 games all happening here in April. Memphis Grizzlies, Atlanta Hawks, Milwaukee Bucks, the Dallas Mavericks, and then the Pistons. 4 of those 5 games are against extremely talented teams. If the Bulls just lose a couple here early on this 20-game stretch, those games at the end might not even matter, and Billy might be willing to rest some people and lose those games for better lottery odds. So, that's something that's really, really important to look at. But what do the Bulls need to do to boost their odds? The Bulls have a decent chance already at 7. We already covered what the percentages are looking like with the current 7th worst record in the league. But there are some ways that they can raise their stocks and drop in the standings a little bit. So we're going to be covering that exactly. Currently, the Pacers sit 1 spot ahead of the Bulls, at least in reference to lottery odds. Now, the Pacers only have 1 more loss than the Bulls, and the Bulls have played 1 less game. So, realistically speaking, if the Bulls just lose their next game, the Pacers would jump them because the Pacers have a better opposing record. When these two teams have faced each other, the Pacers have 1 more game. So even if the Bulls are able to have the same record at the end of the year, which it seems like they're kind of on pace for that right now, the Pacers would overtake the Bulls, and the Bulls would end up with the 6th best odds to land the top pick, and that would give you a 9.6% chance to get 4th. Really, really close to 10%, gives you a real shot to keep your pick, and you would also get a 9% chance to land number 1. Raising your odds little by little is going to make a huge difference. Now, the next team is going to be the Orlando Magic. The Magic do have a solid lead on the Bulls with 4.5 games ahead in respective to standings and lottery odds. They're a long ways behind the Bulls, to say the least, especially with only 20 games remaining. But the Bulls have shown a great ability to lose to teams that they shouldn't be losing against. And that could be enough during the backstretch here for them to close that 4.5 gap. And the Bulls could make this really, really close. And with a little bit of luck, with the Magic winning some games while the Bulls lose some games, it could quickly get close. And for the Bulls to move to the 5th best lottery odd percentage, they would take a huge jump in percentages. And like I said, with 4.5, with 20 games left, that's about 25% more games the Magic have to win over the Bulls. But that's not too bad of a situation to be in for the Chicago Bulls. And if they're able to do that and have a little bit of luck on their side, they're going to get to a 10.5% chance to land in the top 4 for each pick. Each pick will have a 10.5% chance. That means 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have a 10.5% chance. Nearly actually a 42% chance to land in the top 4. You're still below 50%, but that is a solid number for a team that no one thought should have been in this position. So for the Bulls to move past the Pacers and potentially move past the Magic, they would be in one of the best spots to maintain their pick. Now, sadly, at this point, if the Bulls were to sit at 5, there's 4 teams in their way, and it's going to be really, really hard for the Bulls to climb into that top 4 lottery odds based on the standings at the end of the year, because there's already a huge gap in place. I mean, a huge gap. The Bulls would have to lose 9 more games than the Hornets to move to 4th. 9 more games, which means the Hornets would have to find a way to win, and the Bulls would have to lose. That's nearly forcing the Bulls to lose out at that rate. I mean, we're talking, even if the Hornets won out completely, 20 games, the Bulls would go 11-9. That's if they won out. No one really sees that happening. If the Hornets are to break even and maybe even go a little bit over and they win 12 games, the Bulls could only win 3. That's a drop to 4. If you want to move to 3, to take the 3 spot from the Spurs, it would take 11.5 games. 11.5 games lost for the Bulls while the Spurs win. A dramatic gap. And second 13 more wins to move to second. The Bulls would have to lose 13 more games than the current second seed. For the Bulls to have the worst record in the entire league and have the best odds to win that number 1 pick over what is currently the Detroit Pistons, the Bulls would pretty much have to lose out entirely while the Pistons win out. Nearly the only way that can be done, with a 15.5 game difference. 15.5 through 20 games. That's a huge, huge difference between these two teams. It would take nearly a miracle for such a thing to happen. But those are all the numbers. It got a little bit slow there at the end. Numbers got real confusing, even for me. So I hope you guys were able to understand that. And once again, the question that I mentioned at the top, would you rather the Bulls make a push for the playoffs or a push for the lottery? And if the Bulls somehow manage to get that top 4 pick, who would you want them to get? Comment all that down below. I would greatly appreciate to have a conversation with you guys down below. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope you taught something today. Hope it made you smile. Hope it made you laugh. Something really important to me. Affects someone's day in a great way. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.